Hi, I'm Richard Strahm and I'm with the Tri-County Suburban REALTORS, a real estate broker working in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Today we have with us Kramer, a member of the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, who has attained the At Home with Diversity certification and is also the president of the Eastern Pennsylvania chapter of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance.
That's correct.
Mon, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for the warm intro. Thanks for having me here.
So let's start with talking a bit about how long you've been in real estate and what got you in there.
Love that. So I got involved in real estate in 2018, and it's kind of a funny story. So I was working another job. I was teaching French. I was a French professor for a while, and I wanted a career change. I decided to take an online personality test just because I didn't know what direction to head in. And so, I took the test and the results came back and it recommended real estate agent, which, just the thought of that was absolutely wild and ridiculous to me because I just thought I would never go into an industry, a field like real estate. But I decided to trust the process and go Sixers. And also, just ask a couple friends of mine, close friends, and say like, hey, could you ever see me doing this? Would I even be successful in this field? And it was all with a resounding yes, you'd be fantastic at this. And I've pretty much been in Philly my whole life. I'm involved in a lot of different communities. I have a lot of different connections everywhere. And so I just went for it. I just, go big or go home. And one of the things about real estate, which is really nice, I'd love to talk about too, is that the barrier to entry is very low. So what I mean by that is that you do not have to have a college degree to be in real estate. You actually don't even need to be a U.S. citizen. And the classes, the coursework, just to get your license to take the exams and everything is very reasonable compared to so many other professions if you need to get a college degree. And so I figured if it didn't work out, it wouldn't be too much of a loss. And in this case, it did work out. And I honestly can't imagine doing any other job. This just really fulfills me and checks all my boxes. As a Gemini, I need a lot of stimulation and fulfillment in my everyday life, especially with work. And real estate really does that for me.
I'm fascinated to hear that you were a professor. I never knew that about you. I see so many people that had a previous teaching background that have come into the real estate field. What skill sets do you get from being a teacher that are transferable to being a real estate professional?
It's funny, everyone, when they find out that I was in academia previously, they always say that. Like, wow, we see a lot of teachers who transition into real estate. And so for me, I provide education to all my clients as a part of that process. I've always loved being in the classroom, whether I was a teacher or a student. I just love that learning environment. And so that is the approach that I take with all of my clients. I just think there's just so much misinformation out there about real estate. It's not something that we're taught in schools. And so there's this gap in knowledge and information. And so I do my best to educate all my clients about it and just make it as accessible as possible, and that to help folks realize, hey, I can actually achieve this. I can buy a home. This is actually attainable for me. And I would say that's how my skills kind of transfer in that way.
Okay, now when you came into the real estate world, obviously you needed specialized training in what exactly it is we do in real estate. Did you have a mentor, or how did you get your education?
So I did have a mentor who I'm still very good friends with today, also a realtor at the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors. And we stay in touch, and occasionally I'll still give her a call. And so I've just shadowed a lot. I did a lot of learning, and I'm a fast learner. I'm one of those people that just kind of picks up things very quickly, and you show me once and I kind of get it, and then I'm kind of good on my own to figure things out. So I'm grateful to have all of the mentors and the experts in my area, and just to have really learned from the best.
So June is a very special month. It is Pride Month. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Yes. So let's talk a bit about your new role as the president for the Eastern Pennsylvania chapter of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance.
Sure.
Why and how did that come to be?
I attended the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance conference back in September, and it was in Houston. And it was the first time I was there. I knew some colleagues who were going to be there. So I was like, well, I'll have some friends there who I can meet up with and attend the conference with. And it was at that conference, learning, networking, and hearing the stories of my queer colleagues all across the country that made me realize we need to bring a chapter back to the Philadelphia area. And so that is what we kind of started. And there was already a Pittsburgh chapter and that I was aware of. And so I was just like, wow, we don't have one in Philly yet. Let's do it. And there were three of us who were the founding members who kind of got the ball rolling. And we all agreed that it just would have been too much work to take on our own. And so once the three of us agreed to do it, we managed to do it. And there were a lot of, hoops to jump through, a lot of stuff to get organized in order to get the chapter up and running, and now it's been official since January. So it's been such a lovely journey so far.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
Now,
you.
what is the purpose and the reason? What does the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance do?
So the Alliance mission is advocate, elevate, celebrate. Very simple. We advocate for LGBTQ plus home ownership and fair housing. We elevate professionalism in the industry through education, through networking with other folks in the industry. And it's not just real estate agents, it's anyone that's LGBTQ in the real estate industry, from home inspectors to appraisers to lenders to realtors to insurance agents, and our allies as well. So the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance is not just for queer folks, it's for anyone who wants to join. We love a good ally. We need all the allies we can get. And so that's kind of how we elevate within the industry. And then we celebrate. We celebrate our diversity, our pride amongst all of our members as well as our allies.
That's great. And the plus symbol in LGBTQ plus is pretty much everybody, correct?
It's everyone, and also it allows for just the ever expanding spectrum of gender diversity, of gender identities, of sexual orientations, and it's just, the world is constantly changing, and that plus is just really there to be like, adding and holding more space for whatever comes.
So let's go to the first pillar that you talked about, which was the advocate. I read a statistic that said that LGBTQ people have a home ownership rate that runs 20% lower than the average population of the United States. What can we do to advocate for that?
The biggest piece of advice I have for other realtors in the industry is to be a safe and trustworthy person for folks like us in the community. The real estate process, as we know, it's a very personal, vulnerable process. And to have someone in our corner who understands our pronouns, who understands our names, our family structures, I think that really goes a long way, and it helps, just develop that trust between client and agent. So that's what I'd say is one of the biggest ways, is just to, be safe, trustworthy person, but also to devote time to educate yourself on the LGBTQ community. Feel free to research, Google some, gender identities, sexual orientations, pronouns, why are pronouns important? And just having that general baseline of knowledge will go so far.
Now, you've touched on pronouns a few times. Let's talk about that a second, because I know how important that is to everybody. Yeah. How can you help educate people on the best way to handle that?
Great question. It's also a question I get a lot. I will give an analogy. We'll say that pronouns are just like people's names, right? We share our names so that folks know how to address us. We also share our pronouns so that folks know how to address us. When I say, hi, my name is Mon Kramer, my pronouns are they, them. That's letting someone know that they can address me using those pronouns. And just like, we get someone's name, we wouldn't suddenly call them another name, right? We would use their name to be as respectful as possible. It's the same thing with pronouns. And so occasionally you might have a name maybe that you struggle to pronounce. Maybe it's a difficult name to pronounce, or you have to practice it on your own, or you might make a mistake, and that's okay. It's the same thing for pronouns.
One of the pillars that you talked about was the pillar of elevation, elevating, professionalism. What are some of the ways that we can do that?
In general, I think just setting the bar high for client expectations, for being professional, for having good communication skills, for being appropriate, and for just being respectful of everyone, regardless of gender, race, background, location, any of that. Everyone should just have the same baseline of being respectful as a way to elevate in the industry. And it might seem, like basic stuff, but I think that goes a long way.
Well, I did see that you got your At Home with Diversity certification. Did that help you in your profession?
I specifically remember I took the class with another queer colleague of mine. It was done on Zoom, and the instructor, unfortunately, was not aware of any kind of pronouns. I was the only trans, non-binary realtor that was present. My colleague and I both kind of had to teach the instructor and kind of show the way in that regard. And so I've since heard that the curriculum's been updated, but I did, the instructor had very specific questions and did actually call me personally on my phone after the class was over to ask me some questions. And I was happy to provide that information, but oftentimes, as I am often the only trans, non-binary, person in the room in many situations, but especially in real estate. And so, I do a lot of advocating for myself as well as advocating, for the LGBTQ community and showing others, teaching others. And so I didn't, think it was a bad thing. I was glad that the instructor felt comfortable enough to approach me to ask questions, because that is how we all learn and that's how we all grow.
So there are other tools available to all realtors, such as Fairhaven and C2EX, Commitment to Excellence. Would those tools be helpful as well?
For sure. I absolutely love Fairhaven. I think I took it 2 years ago, and I just thought it was such a well done course. I was very impressed with all of the technology with it, and I went into it with, after having taken At Home with Diversity, I was like, we'll see how this goes, but no, NAR really did an excellent job on it, and I'm always recommending it, especially in April and before April, because April's, Fair Housing Month. But I would say 100% it is something that is offered to realtors, it is free, and everyone should be taking it.
So let's talk about our Code of Ethics a second. So we know that Article 10 of our Code of Ethics was revamped a few years ago to talk about people's hate speech in their non-real estate life. Do you think that this was necessary and important?
I do. I think that the amendment of Article 10 is necessary. I know that the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance has been using Article 10 as well with their initiative of tracking RPAC and where those donations are going. Have you heard about the Tracking RPAC initiative?
Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
So it is a new thing that was just launched maybe about a month ago, and there's a map now, and basically the Alliance is tracking where those RPAC donations are going and to what legislators, even though they're deemed as pro-housing, these legislators are also voting for anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ legislation. And so they're using Article 10 as their basis, but this whole initiative with tracking RPAC has been huge, and it's just kind of following where the money goes. And it's, it's complex, it's intersectional, but that's probably the latest initiative that the Alliance is doing.
Okay. I'm going to ask you for two pieces of advice right now. Okay. The first is, what advice do you give to anybody that identifies as LGBTQ on why real estate is a great career?
Real estate is a great career for LGBTQ folks because, like I said in the beginning, that it is a very low barrier to entry. And specifically queer folks, anyone who holds a marginalized identity and background, have issues, they struggle to get into certain careers and certain positions, and real estate is not one of those. Like I said, you don't need a college degree, you don't have to go to college for it, you just need to take the 75 hours of education, you could even do the courses online, pass the state and national exam, and go hang your license at a local brokerage. So it's very easy and attainable to get in. I would say that it's also important to have more LGBTQ folks in our industry so that we can better reflect our community, and so that our community, LGBTQ community, feels even more comfortable with realtors, with real estate agents, to guide them through the home buying and home selling process.
Now let's look at the non-LGBTQ population that is the biggest part of our industry. What advice would you give them to work better with their LGBTQ clients?
I would say, like I said, that I think the best thing you can do is to be a safe and trustworthy person. I think it's important to devote time to research LGBTQ history, to learn about the ongoing and current anti-trans and anti-queer legislation that's happening all across our country right now as we speak, and how it is directly impacting, especially in a negative way, folks in our LGBTQ community. And just that education component can really help people understand, provide more empathy, and to just be a better advocate and ally for folks like us.
Mon, I can't begin to thank you enough for coming here to join us today for this talk. Happy Pride Month to you, your family, and everybody out there. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.